Hello and welcome to the Analog Lefty. My name is Elise. I am pre-filming this before going on my holiday, so if it all goes according to plan, this will have come out a couple of days after Christmas. So I hope you're all having a good holiday season with your loved ones. After a couple of vloggy videos, we're now back to the Lamy series. And if you haven't watched the two other videos that I made, the first one was on the Lamy All-Star and the second one was the Lamy Safari Vista. So this one will be the third and final installment. This is the Lamy Safari Scarlet. I ordered this in June from Take Note in Toronto. This colorway was released, I believe, in March of this year, and I thought it was one of their limited edition ones, but apparently it's now part of their standard lineup. While I'm not really sure why it's called Scarlet, to me, Scarlet is more of a red or a deep red. Its main appeal to me was the matte finish combined with the deep purple plum color and the black accents on it. I was happy it wasn't glossy because this color and finish just makes it look classier. I've already spoken about the construction and handling and all of that good stuff on the Lamy All-Star and Vista in great length and detail. And so because this Lamy Safari pen is similar to those, I thought for today's video, we can focus on another area of fountain pens. As you know, Lamy Safaris are one of the most popular pens that are recommended to people new to fountain pens. And if you're one of those people who have decided to get a Lamy Safari, I thought you also might need information about the different nibs. So today we're going to look at the fine, medium, and broad nibs, how they compare against each other, and how they can affect your writing. To start, here's one I made earlier, writing samples, and I did this using the fine nib on the Lamy Vista, the medium nib on the Lamy All-Star, and the broad nib on the Lamy Safari Scarlet. As you can expect, the line widths vary, with the fine producing the thinnest strokes and the broad producing the thickest strokes. And if we compare them to gel pens, the fine nib looks very close to a 0.5 and the medium looks like a 0.7. And I can't be entirely sure because I don't have one, but I think the broad nib could be close to a 1.0 gel pen. I think that's a good starting point for reference, especially if you're used to writing with gel pens. But I used different pens and different inks, and I thought that things like pen performance and different ink qualities could also have affected the results. So if we want a better comparison, I think only the nibs should be variable. So to make this experiment a little bit better, let's just use the Lamy Safari Scarlet, and I have loaded up the Robert Oster Day to Night ink on this pen, and then let's just swap out the nibs as we go. So we have one pen, one ink, different nibs. Alright, so let's get started. So I chose the Robert Oster Day to Night because it was the perfect matchy-matchy ink with the pen. If you remember, I got this ink sample from the Pelican Hubs. Also, on a scale of dry to wet, I think Robert Oster is somewhere in the middle, so we're kind of minimizing the effect of ink flow quirks in this test. I also think that Robert Oster inks are very well behaved for the most part, so they might be a good choice for beginners. I really appreciate that I was able to do this testing back to back because of how easy it is to swap out the Lamy Z50 nibs. By the way, I got the Lamy Safari Scarlet in medium, and then I bought a fine and broad nib separately from stilo.ca. Anyway, you only really need to take out the nib, not the entire nib feed, unlike other pens. And after installing the new nib, you just need a couple of test strokes and the pen would write as normal. One of the things I've learned as someone who's only really been using fountain pens for a couple of years is that in addition to changing inks, swapping out the nibs on pens you already have is a great way to keep things exciting without necessarily spending potentially more money on new pens. You still get to see how different nibs and inks interact with each other, and it's like you're writing with a brand new pen. Alright, so let's take a closer look at what we got. So, I just love the Lamy Fine nib. It's the perfect fit for my handwriting. As you know, I naturally write small, especially in a rush, and with the fine nib, my letters are perfectly legible and the negative spaces are well balanced. It has some nice feedback, the fine nib, but it still writes smooth. And if we look closer, we can see a fair bit of ink shading in some areas, so we know the ink flows well even on the fine nib. I just moved the post-it note covering the text, but now let's look at the medium nib. So the medium nib definitely has more body to it, and I don't know if you noticed, but I had to increase the size of my writing a little bit. So the has now moved to the second line, and I had to do that to keep my letters legible. The thicker line widths showcase the ink shading a bit better. So I would go for a medium nib when I'm okay with taking a bit more time with my writing and if I want the ink to pop out a bit more on the page. The medium nib also had less feedback compared to the fine because you're working with a bigger surface area. So if you're curious, that's the difference with the writing feel. Last but not the least, the broad. The broad nib is definitely juicy. It's still showing the ink shading, but you can tell that there's more dark areas on my writing because the ink tends to pull a bit more. But I also think that it's because I write on the smaller side. So I think you'll get more out of this nib if you naturally write larger. The ink will spread more evenly and the letters will be more legible and not want to merge into one blob, just like how the W and N looks here. But yeah, that is how the nibs compare against each other using the same pen and ink. Another thing to consider when choosing a nib width is how it affects dry time. This is especially important to me as a lefty who is both an overwriter and a side writer because I can just run my hands along my writing and smudge out everything. As you saw, I tried to avoid that by putting a piece of cloth under my hand or writing at an angle. But even if I have those workarounds, this is good information to know. And so, as a general rule, finer nibs dry faster than broader nibs because they lay down less ink on the page. But let's take a closer look. Alright, so the fine nib is still wet after 1 second, so if you run your hand along as you write, it'll definitely smudge. It's almost completely dry by 5 seconds with just the last few letters smudging, and then dry at 10 seconds, but keep in mind that these can be reactivated by any form of moisture, so if you have sweaty palms or even just the natural oils from your finger when you touch the letters. And then we look at the medium nib, and it's still very wet after 1 second. And 5 seconds on the medium nib looks like how 1 second is for a fine nib, so the dry time is visibly longer. And then we go to the broad nib, which is just super wet. The letters could be almost indecipherable if you smudge after 1 second. And it's still very wet at 10, so proceed with care. And that is how the Lamy Z50 nibs compare against each other. If you're thinking of trying out fountain pens in the new year, I hope you found this little experiment useful and informative, especially if you're considering the Lamy Safari to be your first fountain pen. A bit of housekeeping. As I prepare for my upcoming trip, I don't think I'll have enough time to pre-film more videos, so I might go on a break for a month. Hopefully not that long, but we'll see. The days leading up to the new year is usually the time when I do a lot of introspection and reflect on the year that has passed and figure out what I envision for the upcoming year. So I might need to take that time, and I really hope to see you all when I come back. And if you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate your time and you for being here. I wish you good health and happiness. Take care, and I'll see you in 2026.